Hi, my name is Devin Leanne Ramirez. I am a solutions engineer with SentryOne, and today I'm going to take you through a demo of Plan Explorer. It's our free query tuning solution that's no strings attached. So if you make your way over to SentryOne.com, you can download Plan Explorer for free, and we don't even ask for your email address. So a little bit about me. I got my start in the SQL Server community as a reporting and analytics developer. So true to my roots, I wrote a query against the Wide World Importer Sample Database that returns a sales report. These are order details with an expected delivery date within the last 90 days, and I have some windowing functions here to calculate subtotals by order, by customer over the last 90 days, and I'm even ordering the query here in a way that a salesperson might like to see if they want to do customer satisfaction follow-ups. If I went ahead and got an estimated execution plan here in Management Studio, I get a plan that's pretty difficult to view. I have operators off the screen and a missing index here, but there's no way to know if there's more than one without digging through the XML. So during your installation, you have the option to download the Plan Explorer add-in for Management Studio. The add-in will let you right-click on any execution plan and view with SentryOne in Plan Explorer. So if I right-click and go ahead and view that plan, we can see it in a whole new light. We'll be brought over to the plan diagram page by default. And at the bottom of the page, we have some options here on how to control how we're seeing the plan. We can zoom in or out. We can filter out low-cost operators if we want. We can even stretch or flatten the graphic as we choose. And what's really neat is if you want to go ahead and square up these angles and maybe view the plan from left to right instead of right to left, I can do that here too. And if I'm just interested in auto-fitting the plan to the screen, there's a handy button for that at the bottom as well. If we start digging into the plan here, we can see our highest cost operators highlighted in red. By default, we're showing cost by CPU plus I/O just like Management Studio does. However, by right-clicking and choosing cost by, we have the option to view costs by I/O or CPU individually. On this plan, if I view costs by CPU alone, suddenly this index scan stands out as my biggest concern in the plan. We can also show cumulative costs. And if we're dealing with some large data types, we have the option to view line widths by data size rather than rows. So far, we've been looking at the estimated plan, but if we click Get Actual Plan at the top of the screen, we can see live performance statistics. This query is a little quick, but we can see the data as it flows through each of the nodes, and at the bottom of the screen, we get graphs that lay out this query's resource consumption. We can play this back at slower or quicker speeds if we want to by choosing the speed at the right and clicking the play button. Here, I'm viewing this at 1/4 speed, so we can see this in a slowed down mode and in more detail. If we get to this point and start to have ideas on changes we can make to the query, we can flip back to that command text pane, and then from here we can make the changes we want. So maybe I want to go ahead and comment out these windowing functions and this order by and push that work into my reporting tool. If I click Get Estimated Plan from here, I can go into the results and see that brand new execution plan. If I want to go ahead and look at the history, I can go to View and History, and I can leave a comment with the changes that I made. So I'll say windowing functions removed and order by. removed. And this way, I can go ahead and flip between my original query and my new one and start to just study those and get an idea of if I really made any performance gains. So here I've got the estimated plan. If I wanted to get the actual plan here, I can do that and do some of the same exercises we've been through so far. If I want to go ahead and move on to some of these other tabs, if I go to the Plan Tree tab, and I'll go ahead and click out of the history, this is a great place to view a query plan in chart format rather than graphical. So this can be helpful if you have very large and involved query plans and you're looking to cut to the core to find costly scan operations. I've got the key lookup here highlighted in orange. And I also have this area of actual rows and estimated rows that are highlighted in orange. And if I hover over them, I get this tooltip here that's warning us that we have a discrepancy between our estimated and actual row counts, and that out-of-date statistics might be to blame there. I can also see at a glance here if I have any imbalanced thread distribution in parallel operations. If we head over to the Top Operations tab, we'll get another chart that's sorted automatically by the highest estimated cost by CPU plus I/O. If you want to view some costs individually, we do have that estimated CPU cost and I/O cost broken out here, so you can sort and filter by this as well. And again, we have areas of potential concern highlighted for you. We have our index scans and our key lookup in orange, and then again, our actual versus estimated row variance here. Moving right along into query columns, what we see here is every column that's used in the query plan, the table, schema, and database that those columns belong to, and their associated operations and indexes. Off to the left here, we can also see if these columns are being sorted and what order they're being sorted in, as well as any filters that are being used on those columns. The Join Diagram tab offers another way to look at this information. So this tab shows us all of the tables that are involved in this query, the columns, and how they're interacting with each other. So these nodes here, if you click on them and hover over them, you'll start to see the types of joins that are happening between the tables and on what columns they're happening on. This is a fairly simple query, but if you have large, complex queries with lots of joins, this can be especially helpful. And for those of you out there that come across the occasional nested view, this can be really, really time-saving as well. Moving right along into the Expressions tab, this is one of my personal favorites, and this query really demonstrates why. Oftentimes in Management Studio, these expression names that start with EXPR will be floating around, and they can be nearly impossible to figure out what they really mean. So here, what Plan Explorer does is unravel those expressions for you in both a simplified and an expanded format. What I can see here is an implicit conversion, which is really great because those can be quick wins to resolve if I want to get my data types in agreement with each other. Other things you might see here in this pane, if you have large case wins at work, or if you have any functions going on, those would show up here as well. The Table I/O tab is available when you have an actual plan that you've collected. So we have read-ahead reads, physical reads, and logical reads by lob data on the left and in-row data on the right. And we have this for each table and work table involved in the plan. We also have the scan counts available off to the right. The Index Analysis tab is where we can get an idea of how effective our existing indexes are at covering the query we're looking at, and do some time-saving analysis and even manual statistics maintenance here. In the index analysis part of the pane, we can view selected operations by node, and we'll see the cost associated with each node here. So by default, I'm looking at node 17, which is 35.9% of my CPU plus I/O cost. Once I have a selected operation to focus on, I can start digging into that information in the chart below. And that's broken up into two sections. I have column information on the left, and on the right, I've got index information. So here in the columns, I can see some that are bolded and some that aren't. The ones that are bolded are used in the query, and the ones that aren't are involved in indexes that are on the table, but they're not used in the query plan. If I want to go ahead and curtail what I'm seeing here, at the top of the chart, the visible column section will help you do that. I can unclick the index column and get a more filtered view, or I can include them if I want to do that for my index analysis. Other information available on a column level, we show density if it's available, the last time statistics were updated, the average length, the estimated size. If a column is included in the output of the query, you'll see the checkbox here. If there's a sort going on, we can see the type and the order. And then if a column is used in a join or where clause, we can see that information in the predicate column. So one thing I'd like to call attention to here, we saw in a tooltip and even at the top of the screen that we had estimated and actual rows that varied by quite a bit, and the tooltip was letting us know that that could be a problem with out-of-date statistics. So this is the pane where you can both see if that's actually the problem and solve it. So if I wanted to go ahead and update these statistics, I can see that they are as old as 2016 in September. So as of the time of this recording, that's more than a year old. I can see the same thing over under my indexes at the bottom of the screen. So these histogram buttons that you're seeing are a way to update those stats. I can see the stats that are involved. So this one is a non-clustered index on the table. And I can choose whether I want to do a sample, full scan, or resample, and what my sample percentage would be. I can update statistics right from this pane if I already have those permissions. And then I can do that again on the index side or the column side, whatever it is that needs to be done. So speaking of statistics, if I were to click on any of these indexes, if I had statistics on them, a graph would show at the bottom of the screen with my histogram. So I have the stock item as the first column in this non-clustered index that I've chosen. And so I'm seeing that data distribution in the graph. If we had a parameterized query, you'd see the runtime parameter value or range of values highlighted on the chart. Another thing you'd see if you had parameters in your query or store procedure is an area off to the left-hand side of the screen that would let you see the runtime value, the operation that resulted, and an area where you can test to see if you change the parameters, what that would do to the operation. Maybe you'd get a scan instead of a seek or vice versa. There's a bit of nuance in the middle section for indexes here. On the far left, you'll see the clustered index if you have one on the table. And if that's the index that's being used in this operation, it will be in bold. Next up, if you have a non-clustered index that's being used instead, you'll see that in bold. And then after that, you'll see any missing indexes if you have any that are being recommended here. So I can see that I don't have any for this query, but be on the lookout for that. After that, The indexes that are already on the table here will be in order by a proprietary score that we have that lets us know how well that index works with this selected operation. Now we're ready to dive in and do some if analysis. So I'm noticing an index here that has a score of 43%. And I think that one would be great to play with for us, and I say that for a few reasons. In yellow here, I can see that the columns that have predicates are already included in this index. And then I'm also seeing in salmon that maybe we can try including these output columns since they don't have a predicate or any sorts or anything like that. So if I click on those cells and we go ahead and include them, I am seeing the score go up. So if we decide that 80% is about good enough for what we want to go ahead and try here, we can click the script indexes button. And then a window will pop up for us where we can execute if we have the permissions to do that and want to go for it, or we can copy this to the clipboard and do some more testing. That wraps up the basic functionality of Plan Explorer, our free query tuning solution. If you need help finding queries that might be hogging resources on your systems, we have other solutions that work in tandem with Plan Explorer to help you find those in the first place. If you're looking for some performance tuning opportunities, a great place to start is our Performance Advisory dashboard. What I have up on the screen is our SQL Sentry product. So I'm showing SQL Server activity on the right and OS activity on the left. I can see that I do have a lot of write activity on my database I/O side. I can definitely see that I have some SQL Server waits here that are related to disk and parallelism. I can also see some key lookup spikes up in the SQL Server activity graph. So what I can do if this is an interesting time slice for me and I want to see what's running at this time, if I were to go ahead and click on any graph and drag and highlight it, I can right-click and jump to the top SQL pane. By default, I'll be brought over to the completed queries pane, and what this includes are queries and stored procedures that took more than 5 seconds to run. That is configurable if you click View and Settings. You can change that minimum duration here. So I can see every time that this stored procedure internet sales by product completed, for instance. But if I wanted to get an idea of in totality what the impact was on my resources, I can click the Show Totals button at the top of the screen. That will normalize all of my queries and store procedures. I can get an idea of how many times it ran, and then I can filter and sort my CPU reads and write activity over here to the side. So if I went ahead and did that, I can see that I have an alter index query running that is producing a lot of write activity, but it's probably not my biggest concern of the day. So if I go ahead and look at reads instead, I do see 2 stored procedures here that are taking up a decent amount of CPU and reads. So if I decide maybe I want to go ahead and tune those, what I can do is open it up, the node up at the side, and then if I have a plan selected, I will see that Plan Explorer information surface from this pane. I can go ahead and go to Plan Explorer from here. But if this is something that I'm tracking over time, maybe I've already looked at this in Plan Explorer and went ahead and added an index from that index activity pane. And maybe I expected the duration on this stored procedure to improve over time after I did that. I can look at the query history graph over to the side and really start to see that data and dig into it. If I was looking to improve my store procedure by CPU or I/O, I can view that data here as well. If this is the first time I'm really looking at this query and I want to really go for it in Plan Explorer, I can open it using the link at the top of the plan diagram side of the page, or I can press the open button, either way. So once I do that, I'll be brought over to the plan diagram just like we were when we started out this demo. To get more information on performance tuning, head over to SQLperformance.com. There you'll find articles written by our partners over at SQLskills.com, as well as our on-staff Microsoft MVPs and evangelists in the community that are passionate about our products. You can even get answers to your individual questions on our forum and share execution plans with us out of Plan Explorer there too. Happy performance tuning, everyone. Until next time.